one of the examples I think of right off the bat is like the love languages.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this on the show before, and it's easy for me to focus on mine. Mine don't matter at all.
Yeah.
Michelle's matter to me. And so that's taking the focus off of me, and saying, okay, like I'm going to focus on Michelle's love languages,
right,
which are different than mine. And so it makes it really hard. This is Ryan and Michelle, and welcome to the Celebrate MarriageCast, where we hope to restore and reclaim godly marriages through honest and real conversations.
Welcome to episode 94, smack dab in the middle of summer here. We hope you are having a great one so far, and we are so proud of you for joining us on the Celebrate MarriageCast. If you haven't already subscribed or followed along, we would love for you to do that just so you can get the notifications. There's a lot of noise out there just so you get notified when there are fresh episodes. And if you could leave a review, that would be amazing as well. It helps other people to find the Celebrate MarriageCast and to get these valuable tools. Today on our show, Ryan, we have our guest and friend of the Celebrate MarriageCast back, Tony Boer. Tony is with the Sioux Empire Christian Counseling Group in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he has helped so many couples with their marriages, and we are really, really excited to have him back because he brings such a great level of expertise and just professional wisdom as we talk about marriage, and you've seen it all, and you're here to help our listeners. Yeah. So welcome, Tony.
Thank you. I like that introduction. I'm a friend. It's growing, right? It's like, hey, I'm a guest. Now we're kind of friends. So we're working on it. We're making relationships grow. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just, and you like soccer. So that's like automatic friend status.
Makes friends everywhere in the world. Whoever likes soccer.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tony, we are diving into, I think, a really interesting topic today. We're talking about attitude. And I like this because I think there's a lot that goes into a person's attitude, and often I think it's looking in the mirror, and that's part of the challenge I think we're going to be talking about today, is really kind of diving in and like, okay, we need to look in the mirror at ourselves. So, how many times when we meet with couples do they want to focus so much on outward, and very rarely do they want to look in the mirror and look inward. So we're gonna be talking about this today and diving in. I'm excited. I think this is gonna be a really great episode, really impactful.
I feel like this is something we would tell our children. You need an attitude adjustment.
Yes.
But you know what? Today we are looking in the mirror, and it's Michelle and Ryan. We ourselves need an attitude adjustment.
Absolutely. So, Tony, talk a little bit about when you see couples come in. How much does this actually happen?
Yeah, and attitude adjustments can be really important. So we're going to talk about how often I see it, and we talk about what I see in marriage counseling, but I want you guys to think about it not only in marriage counseling, is can you address it before it gets to the point where you have to be in marriage counseling?
Okay.
Right? So couples will come in and I'm like, hey, what's the problem? And for example, the wife will say, I am really frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. I'm having to do all this kind of stuff. And my husband is just out doing his own thing. He isn't around. He's not helping me. He is just, he's not helping. He's not pulling his weight. Okay. And I'll ask him, hey, what do you think your perspective is? What's going on? Oh, she gets overreacting. She gets really mad. She gets really emotional. I can never make her happy. This is really tricky. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll flip it and go, I'll ask the wife, okay, what do you need to do different? And almost always she goes, I just told you, this is what he needs to do, right? They point at the other person. And that's the attitude adjustment that we're talking about. It's so easy to look and see all the stuff that's going on, and these are the things. And she may be entirely right, and he may be entirely right. Mm-hmm. But when you ask that person, what do you need to do different? You get a lot of blank looks.
Yeah. So like, Tony, in that scenario, what would the wife maybe say, and what would the husband maybe say that would lead to their repairing of that situation?
What would they say?
Like what reflections would they have? Would they get to a point where, like, can you paint that out?
The they still get stuck even when I ask them what that looks like. So she'll say something like, well, I wouldn't get so emotional if he would just help me out. And so they'll kind of own what they heard the other person say, but it'll always somehow go back. Well, I would help her out a little more if she was happy and didn't critique me so much. And so they still kind of act like that's what I need to work on, but it's just the sneaky little dig back to the other person.
And go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to, it's like conditional.
Yes.
Right? Like it's not like a true self-reflection. It's like, well, yeah, I'll be better if he does or she does this. Mm-hmm. Then I can do something different.
Yeah, and there's that piece of if you want marriage counseling to work, i.e., then also if you want your relationship to work, right, doing it before you get into marriage counseling is, are you willing to change and do it different, right? When you come in, you're like, oh, he needs to do this. He needs to do this. And if you're not willing to go first, right, you'll hear that a lot. It's like, oh, I'll be a little less emotional if he does this. I'll help her out a little more if she does this. And they'll just sit and kind of wait. Well, I'll do it after. You have to come into counseling and you have to come into your marriage going, all right, I'm stuck. This isn't going well. What do I need to do different?
Sure. So what would be a healthy example of that? Going back to the first, so like the worst case, the kind of the middle case is still kind of passive aggressively pointing. What would be a healthy way for them to say that?
To say what?
Like the woman that is feeling like she's not getting help around the house.
She can say all that other stuff because those are her feelings, right? Hey, I'm frustrated, I'm overwhelmed. So when they say that about each other, that's okay. It's, can you say the piece about you?
Do.
Yeah. The best couples that come into marriage counseling and the best predictor of everything is when they come in and they go, our marriage is struggling. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Can you help me do something different?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And what's strange is a lot of times they are correct, right? So there's this piece of like, when you ask kind of how can they do it a little different is, hey, how can you ask for help in a less emotional way? How can you change that? Can you do that? Or talking to him is like, hey, how can you put a little more effort in? Right? If you ask him, do you put a ton of effort into the things? Could you put more effort into your marriage? Could you put more effort into helping with the kids or doing that? Most of the time, the spouse can say, yeah, I can help with the kids more. I can do that more. But when they're so busy getting defensive and fighting and doing those things, it gets really tricky. And so it's just, can you look in the mirror? Can you recognize you have a role in this?
Yeah.
Tony, I think that's so good. This idea of looking in the mirror, and Michelle, to answer your question, like, you know, I'm thinking of like, you know, a guy comes in and is like, oh, you're just so emotional, you know, blah blah blah, and pointing that finger instead of like looking at it and kind of really owning this and saying, you know what, you're right, I have checked out. I've checked out because work is so stressful. Like all of these things are going on in my life, and like, when I come home, like I'm carrying the stress and I just need to go golf every night or something like that, of just being really honest with what is happening and just owning the fact that like, yeah, you're right. You know, you're right. I have checked out. I have checked out from being, you know, from doing things to helping with the kids because of like all of these things are going on and I'm having a hard time.
That's good, Ryan. Yeah, that makes sense.
And you answered it, but so what are they supposed to say? Like, so when she says, you're checked out, you're not helping out, you're right. Right? You said, you're right. And then we kind of, and here's all the reasons why, but go slow. Most of the time, what your spouse is saying is pretty accurate for both parties. It's like, hey, you were checked out. Correct. I'm empty. I don't have a lot to give. I'm stressed at work. Yeah. But just going really slow and acknowledging what that other person said, looking in the mirror is like, you are correct. And in that case, when we talk about it the other way, hey, you're really emotional. You're correct. I am. I'm overwhelmed. You're correct. And so it's just slowing that process down instead of trying to point out, hey, you're wrong. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. Like, slow it down. You're right.
Yeah.
It's usually when you ask, what's the answer to do? That's it. Acknowledge the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you do a good job of that, Ryan, where you'll even say, what's really going on. And, in that too emotional example, I might say something like, you're right. I realize I've not been taking my supplements this week. And you know what? I've not been, sleeping great. And I'm worried about this. And I have been stressed. And, you'll start to have those realizations.
Yeah. Does that I'm just thinking instantly that probably lowers the temperature a little bit of just saying, you know what? You're right. And I would imagine that opens the door then, because all of a sudden, you feel validated and you're like, okay, they acknowledged what I'm feeling and what I'm going through. For both parties in that conversation, I would imagine that it instantly takes it down a bit.
And if you listen, and I get to ask couples a lot of times when they start get going, like, what are you fighting about?
Do they know?
A lot of times they don't. Right?
Sure.
Well,
yeah.
I think I'm fighting about how he's da-da-da-da-da-da. No, I'm fighting about how she's... Okay, what are you really fighting about?
Yeah.
And the answer is, we're unhappy, or we're not connected, or we're not together. And people always ask, how do you do marriage counseling, Tony? That's got to be so hard and so difficult, and couples are arguing back and forth and doing all. And there are tricky things, but there's this piece of, I get to see what they don't see, is when she's saying, I'm overwhelmed, she's like, I need you, I need you, I need you. And then what's the guy saying? I'm trying to make you happy. I want to make you happy. Okay, so I got one person saying, I need you and I want you. Okay, that's kind of cool. I can work with that. They don't see that, right?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about just acknowledging that, what are you guys fighting about? Are you checked out? Are you not putting enough effort in? Yeah, that's probably true. Do you get a little overwhelmed and emotional? Yeah, that's probably true. Okay. So what are we actually arguing about? And so it's just slowing that down and taking that down a notch and seeing you guys are more on the same page than you know.
Thanks for those examples, Tony. And just to give our listeners more evidence of why it's so good to, have that attitude adjustment and not focus just on the other spouse's issues, but our own. What is the success rate? So you see this all the time. What's the success rate when people stay pointing their finger at their spouse focused?
Not good at all. And the success rate is really low, or we'll get stuck, or the progress will go really slow. You can have a lot of sessions where I'm just trying to get each person to go, are you willing to do things a little bit different? And are you willing to try first? And sometimes we can do sessions after sessions and different versions and different problems and that. But as soon as someone goes, I'm ready to change, I'll do whatever it takes. And then we spend some time like, hey, I don't even care if your spouse is on board or not. And they can be right there. It's like, you're going to do work on you no matter what. And then I tell the other spouse, you're going to work on you no matter what. Regardless, don't wait who goes first, who does what. And so once you get to that point, success is really good. You see the outcomes in therapy go really well when they're willing to change. If you're coming to therapy to fix your spouse, you're going to be in therapy a long time.
Yeah. We're doing this Bible reading plan, and there's a recap podcast every day. And just today I heard this statement. It said, a problem in a marriage is still going to be a problem outside of the marriage. In that you need to work on yourself too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when couples are really not doing well on the verge of divorce, and we kind of focus and get them to say, all right, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. Even if it's not going to work out with the spouse that you're with, this is what you still need to do, and this is what you're going to need to do going forward. So you might as well start practicing with the spouse right now.
Yeah.
Because it'll start to kind of go and do this, but you have to do this work no matter what. And If you think, well, I'm going to leave and go, and I'm just going to marry a husband who tries a little more and the world will be great. No, you still have your stuff. Or I'm going to try to marry a girl that's not as emotional. Okay, you're not fixing the issue. And it helps couples that are really stuck, and for couples that are out there and you feeling really hopeless and it's like, man, I don't know if my spouse is on board with this. Focus on you. Focus on the stuff you need to do and realize you're going to need to do that to have a healthier, better life regardless of what happens in your relationship. So start now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. I imagine, Tony, a lot of, you see a lot of this, I'm going to make up a term here, but like a hurt loop, right? Mm-hmm. Where these, you have a husband and wife and they keep like building off of this, and it just goes round and round where, I say something stupid, that's hurtful, spouse will react with something hurtful, and this just continues. It just continues on and on because nobody will acknowledge, like, hey, I said something, dumb, or I said something hurtful, and acknowledging that, and instead you just stay in this loop.
Yes.
Round and round you go.
Well done. You can even use that word. I like it, hurt loop. But it is. You get stuck. And what happens is you tend to try to prove you hurt me more or you hurt me bigger. And you'll see them going around and around in therapy, and you ask them, all right, let's say you win and you prove your point. You hurt me more. What do you win? What do you get? And so you try to get them out of this loop. It's like, well, you did this. Well, you did this. Well, you did this. And it keeps escalating and going. And it's like, what are you guys trying to do? Who wins, right? And what do you win? And how to get out of that loop is just recognizing, what are you really trying to do? Are you trying to prove, hey, I won, Tony. Yeah, what happened? You agreed with me. My spouse is worse than me. Okay, right. Great. You have a really mean spouse. Now what?
Yeah.
You didn't win a thing.
Right.
Right. I will forever remember on a show when you said this, you had said, if I win and Michelle loses, our marriage loses. Mm-hmm. If Michelle wins and I lose, our marriage loses. It has to be a win-win.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just like this scenario, like, Tony, you're spot, like nobody wins in this loop. And it's just, it creates more hurt and more, and it's just, yeah.
And one of the reasons that happens is, if you kind of look deeper of like what's behind that, is if I can make that my spouse is worse than me, then I don't have to change. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, you don't have to look at the person.
What are they fighting for and doing? Is like, hey, that person is worse than me. They need to change. They need to start, and then maybe I'll join in. And it lets them off the hook. And it's a really lazy, kind of a bad way to do that, but that's what they're usually trying to win or purpose. Like, oh, they're really bad, so you work on them, and I'll just sit back here. It's safe. I don't have to do anything. And if they don't work hard and they don't change, then I don't have to do anything. And so they're always trying to keep that power to do that. It's like, if that person's worse, then I don't have to change, because people don't like to change. It's hard work.
Interesting. I had not thought about the power play there too. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So what role, Tony, what role does forgiveness play in all of this?
That's it, is you give up your power, right? When you forgive, you say, we're good. Let's go back. Let's do this again. And let's talk. You're not holding anything over anybody. And so you need to forgive. It's scary because you give up power, right? If your spouse does something mean and bad and terrible to you, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to hold that over their head, or that's my trump card in any argument, I'm going to bring up that. You'll hear that a lot with couples that have affairs, is they'll be they're working on the relationship, they're doing pretty good, and then they'll have I would call a normal fight about just anything, right? And then if it starts to go a little bit bigger and it gets a little awkward or uncomfortable, then they're like, well, you had an affair. And then everything's done, right? And so that forgiveness means is It's that looking in the mirror is like, oh, we together are going to do the next step. We together are going to work on a relationship instead of having this power dynamic or you got to work up to me or I'll hold this above your head. It's like, nope. And it's no secret. Forgiveness is hard, right? Yeah. It's really tricky, which is because you give up a lot of power. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think this introduces a whole different topic that I think is so interesting, this power dynamic. And I think a lot of couples struggle with this. Mm-hmm. And you know, this goes back to looking in the mirror and being like, okay, if I have all the power, what does that really mean for our relationship? Mm-hmm. Like it's not a healthy relationship if I'm always holding this over Michelle. Like it's not a healthy, but I think so many couples struggle with this idea of power and who has the power and who controls this and who controls that. And it leads to problems.
Yeah, if you have all the power, and there's lots of power dynamics in couples, if you have all the power, you're safe, but you're lonely.
Sure.
Because like in that example, you have all the power, but you're safe. You can't get hurt. It's all Michelle's fault, and she doesn't. But you're lonely because there's no way Michelle can connect with you because you're not on an even plane. Even if she's trying, even if she wants to, it's like, nope, you got to come up to me and meet me. Well, God gave us a great example. It's like, yeah, we're never going to be able to do it. I got to come down to you.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, we got to forgive. We have to be on that same page. So that power, it keeps you safe, but just remember, it also keeps you alone.
Yeah.
I think of the song, was it Matthew West that had the song Forgiveness? And it talked a lot about you're a prisoner. Forgiveness is just as much for you. It is for you, probably more than the other person. Like if you're chained to that situation until you can forgive. So you're waking up daily. The other person, your spouse, probably isn't thinking about whatever, something every day, but you're the prisoner in that situation. So it's just as much for you to be able to unbind yourself from the chains of that unforgiveness.
Yeah, great point, Michelle. Yeah.
Tony, do you have any recommendations for helping us to look in the mirror, to face ourselves, and to start to focus on ourselves?
Yeah. First thing, slow down. Can you hear what your spouse is saying? Most of the time, can you validate? Yes, you're right. That's true. And the last big thing is listen to their words. A lot of times, your spouse is going to say things like, I'm really mad, hurting, far away, and angry at you. And we really want to kind of like defend, well, da-da-da-da-da. Slow down. Isn't that how you're feeling? Right? Couples will argue and they will be tearful and sad and they will say this thing, and then I'll look at them and like, think about how you're feeling right now in your relationship. You're hurting, you're far away, and you're stuck. Guess what? Your spouse is feeling exactly the same way. They're using different words. They're saying it in a different way. So how do we look in the mirror? It's like, can you hear what your spouse is saying? And can you listen and hear that as, those are my words, right? So when your wife is saying, I'm frustrated, we're not connected, and you're not here for me, slow down and think a second. Is that how you're feeling? And most of the time the answer is like, yeah, okay, then
we can work with that.
We can work with that, right? And I'm disconnected. Well, you don't ever want to have sex with me. And they argue back and forth like, whoa, listen to the words. And so like, how do you take that from off and look back in the mirror, like you said, and look at yourself, slow down, listen to what the person's saying, and then just ask yourself, is that how you feel? Do you feel the same way? Don't get defensive. Don't fight back. Can you hear the feelings that they're saying? Is that how you feel? If you do, that's workable.
Yeah, so good. One of the things that I've like in whether it's at work or whether it's in life of focusing on, one of the things that's been helpful for me is focusing on my inputs, because I can control what I put in. I can control how I do this. I can't necessarily control the outcome, But I think a lot of people get so focused on the outcome. And I think a lot of this is true for marriage. I can control what I put into our marriage. And, the words that I say to Michelle, how I connect with her, all of those things. And that's really what I think changes.
Yeah.
When I focus on that and I focus on, what I can do to help improve our marriage. And, as long as that aligns with Michelle, one of the examples I think of right off the bat is like the love languages. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this on the show before, and it's easy for me to focus on mine. Mine don't matter at all. Yeah. Michelle's matter to me. And so that's taking the focus off of me, and saying, okay, like I'm going to focus on Michelle's love languages, right, which are different than mine. And so it makes it really hard.
Yours is quality time, but if you just came over and sat by me and didn't say any words of affirmation, you would just be missing the mark. Yeah. Like you just came over on the couch and were silent.
Yeah.
You'd be really happy.
Right. But it's controlling those inputs. And that's what I'm thinking of as I'm looking at this of what can I do, and really looking in the mirror of what I'm bringing and acknowledging when I'm falling short. And being truly honest and having those hard internal conversations with myself and be like, okay, yeah, here's where I'm falling short. Here's where I'm, I need to change.
It starts with us.
Yeah.
Like it starts with me.
Right.
Yeah. And well said. And the 5 love languages, it's a perfect example of couples struggling to look in the mirror. I'll ask people, hey, have you ever heard of the 5 love languages? They always have, right? Yeah. Here's what I'm like, and what's the big thing about the 5 love languages? Well, this is mine and this is hers. Okay, yeah, what's the big thing? They don't ever get it. Like, well, the big thing is we always do the one we want, not the one that's our partner's.
Yeah.
And it's easy to go, here's my love language and here's how my wife's not doing that and here's where she's screwing up and here's that. I'm like, yep, all true except for you forget something. Your job is to do hers, not to do the one you want, right? So it's like, then that's just what you're saying. It's like, oh, yeah. It's like, yep. Yeah. Remember, the big thing is we have to do our spouses. Look outside yourself.
Yeah.
So attitude adjustment. Tony, thank you. Do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners today?
Closing thoughts is all this stuff. Most of the time we're going to be talking about when you're in a fight, when you're in an argument and you're sharing these things, trying to get out of those hurt loops or trying to not to have it escalate is when it's going tough, can you just listen and hear that what your spouse is saying goes, are they right? Is there some parts of that are fair? And what do I need to do different? Just start with you.
Yeah, that's great. We're Bible recap, talk about it all the time. We just learned today's recap was the difference between knowledge, that's like having the information. Understanding is seeing how the knowledge fits into the bigger picture. But wisdom is knowing how to implement and work with that knowledge and understanding. It's how to put it into practice.
Yes.
I just think like that ties in so much with what you just said is seeing the bigger picture, having the facts, but then being wise enough to put all of that into play and seeing, you know what, there is truth in that, and I can reflect this back on me, and there are things that I can do to change.
And how do you slow that all down the easiest? Say you're right. Right? When your spouse is expressing hurt, you're right. Yes, they're going to have some details in there that you don't agree with and aren't quite right or over-exaggerated. But slow down. If your spouse is saying, you hurt me, you're right. No, you're not. It's like I always joke when people come into therapy. It's like, they come in and say, I'm sad. I'm like, no, you're happy. Cool. See you later. Bye. It's like, that would be awesome if it worked that way. It doesn't. So when someone comes in and they say, I am sad or you hurt me, you're right.
Yeah.
That's so good. I imagine those words are really hard to say, but I think it's an instant. Maybe not an instant. Maybe I'm over exaggerating that, but
brings it down fast.
It
absolutely.
Does, and I just think that acknowledgement just sets the tone for future conversations.
Well said. You guys, thank you so much. Anything else? Either of you?
That's great. We'll end with.
We're out of mystery questions, so I don't have anything off the cuff here. So unless you do, right?
No, I don't. I don't.
All right.
We just did a fun soccer trivia last week. So send in your mystery questions if you guys have one. But Tony, you'll be back for 5 Minute Friday this week, right?
You bet.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today on the Celebrate MarriageCast. We have marriage resources at Celebrate.church/marriage. Additionally, we have our service times. You can watch our church live online at Celebrate.church. We hope that you have a great week.
Have a great weekend.
See ya.